Different bar, same drink? Perhaps. I was working on a new cocktail before the sudden change in scenery. I heard the feedback and I agree. It is possible to say executives are bad one too many times, even if it is true. It's like a car alarm. At first everyone's concerned. You look around to see if the owner's going to stop it, and then you wish the burglar would just hurry up and steal it already so the stupid thing would shut up. I don't intend to bang on the same drum in this chapter of Cold Take. However, I do hope you'll allow me to indulge in the closing of that chapter, as I have a few notes that can help workers and executives alike. It's a little perspective from someone who's always ended up between the two. Keep in mind, while I do find my experience useful, this is just one man's experience. It is odd, though, that I've done this 4 times now. You ever get this odd feeling like you hear about one round of layoffs and that breaks the seal to more? One day Bungie's kicking out employees, then Ubisoft's given the boot the next day, Unity the day after, and etc. on the following week, all while reporting record-breaking profits again. That's because businesses operate on a fiscal year and fiscal quarters. In business, a year has 365 days, but their calendar doesn't have to start in January like yours or mine. A Microsoft business year runs from July 1 to June 30 of next year. Nintendo starts in April and ends in March of the next year. Regardless, they all operate in quarters. Those are 3 months long, and at the end of those 3 months is when businesses take a look at how they're doing. Slight increases or decreases in spending can happen at any time, but the biggest changes come around the first 3 months or the last 3 months, as companies try to start or end a business year on the right foot. I always try to keep the quarters in mind so I ain't caught unaware. To many, the scariest times are during the layoffs, or as HR likes to call it, the amicable parting of ways. Sure, firings are terrifying, but I'm even more afraid of the hirings. After a good quarter, many executives put the money they made back into their system to make more money, like a real-life infinite money glitch. When I'm offered more money, I always ask what's the catch first. If it comes with no change to my duties, then they're trying to pay me what they think I'm worth. If the bump in pay comes with added duties, then my boss just handed me a loan. With a simple promotion, I was shifted from profitable to non-profitable. It'll be used as leverage against me to force more output. Even if I pull through one time, I'll be offered another loan, and then again if I make magic happen until I end up at my level of incompetence. In my early 20s, I worked my way up from a janitor at a warehouse to the business consultant in 6 months. Minimum wage to $100K salary. I got their finances in order, I gave them their first green months, I grew different branches. But eventually the requests from the CEO and the head accountant were too much for one man to handle. I was told to slash dozens of newly hired employees. I was terrible at office politics, and I was let go. Didn't even get to keep the broom I started with. But by all means, take every pay raise offered to you if you don't plan on sticking around long. Not every job is a career, I get that. For executives, though, if you ever find yourself at the end of a good fiscal quarter or year, think long and hard before you play double or nothing with people's livelihood. Take Epic Games, who had to let go of their entire growth department because the rise of Fortnite tweaked their expectations. Contextualize your wins and losses. Do you really think another pandemic and round of stimulus checks will happen next year? If no, then don't spend money like the sequel to COVID-19's coming. If you feel like you constantly have to fire workers for underperforming and not meeting standards, then perhaps you are overhiring, overspending, and your standards need reassessing. Many businesses have a specific role focused entirely on showing fancy charts and graphs to investors so they can pretend that infinite growth in a finite resource world is possible. The panhandlers and brown noses in cheap suits holding one-on-one fundraisers in nice restaurants with potential backers. Investors is a fancy word for rich people who don't have the decency to keep their gambling problems inside a casino. Businesses are their casinos. Show them the infinite growth graphs. Tell them they stand to make all their money back with a fat interest rate. But before they collect their money, let them reinvest it back into the company with a promise for more money. Given the choice between money and more money, they can't resist choosing more money. So they stay playing. And as long as the deep pockets never cash out of your imaginary casino, then that money is yours to play with. If you stop growing or you can't pay back the agreed upon return, then you have to pay what you owe. A lot of companies run on borrowed money, and it's usually workers stuck paying the bill in the end. As a worker, the thing I find gives me some sense of security in this rat race is to grow into a big rat. A big, chunky, unique rat with name recognition. Corporations are less likely to fire Bubba, the only rat who knows how our inventory management system works during the first and second round of layoffs. I always keep a suitcase packed, and this buys me enough time to scamper away to a place that could use a rat of my talents, to grow into an even bigger, more recognizable rat with wider skills, until I can eventually find somewhere that doesn't run like a rat race at all. My goal is to survive until I can thrive. For executives, if you're wondering why you have such a high turnover rate and your workers keep running off with your cheese, it's because you're operating a rat mill. I show up, gather experience and connections, then take off when I feel the fiscal year hirings and firings were a little too harsh. Or you demand inhuman output to give investors their money back in a panic. It's the price you pay for being out of touch with your own production. Out of touch is a phrase taken to be so vulgar, but it's simply a state of being. No one is as in touch with the workplace and the industry as the people who have their boots on the ground. The ground is the present culture, the zeitgeist. The higher you climb up the corporate ladder, the more responsibilities you take on that keep you away from the culture. As you rise up, you're surrounded by other people who are also increasingly out of touch, whose job it is to make decisions on the assumptions of trends. At the top of the ivory tower is a bubble that exists in a different time and space from the rest of the world. It is an unavoidable consequence of the altitude, and happens to everyone climbing the company ladder. It happens to the best of us, the worst of us. By the best of us, I mean Todd Howard admitted to overstepping on Fallout 76's multiplayer because he floated a little too far off after the successes of the Elder Scrolls and the Fallouts that came before. By the worst of us, I mean John Riccitiello had to resign after trying to monetize Unity into the ground in similar fashion to when he worked at EA, during which the company was voted worst in America in 2012 and again in 2013. As a creator whose work revolves around staying in the know, I swat away the job titles of managers and directors. Sure, I'd love to know what's going on and be clued into major decisions, but I'd prefer to be left to my own devices, minimizing work so I can make time to mingle with the culture. I always do a scheduled refresher course. What's everyone playing? What's the new hotness? Is it still cool to say mid, or am I capping? I keep my finger on the pulse of the environment so I can tell when my bosses are off beat. When the arrow to the knee jokes and Velociraptor memes come back is when we need to have a talk. If they don't listen to reason, then I grab my pre-packed bags because culture's not something you can make on an assembly line. You can't buy into it, you can't calculate it. If you have it, you're set. If you don't have it, you need the self-awareness to delegate to someone who does. Being crusty ain't all that bad. In my opinion, being crusty and in denial is what creates this feedback loop. If you understand the environment, you don't grossly overspend in quarter one to then aggressively cut back in quarter four. You understand the value of workers beyond who has the most arbitrary output. You don't promise ridiculous returns on investments. You don't abuse the passion of workers. The blood of the games industry takes less pay, longer hours, and brutal working conditions just to get a chance to make the stuff they love. This is partly why they're taken advantage of. Corporate businessmen were necessary evils when the games industry started because making games and selling games are different specialties. The suits provided the marketing, the contracts, the connections. And now we're getting to the point where experienced creators are taking on the roles of the executives, either for themselves or for others. They have the connections, the experience, the marketing, and the money. So what's the point of a suit? I hear AI is taking big strides to eliminate workplace redundancies. Maybe instead of replacing the workers, it replaces out-of-touch executives who overspend, overhire, and overpromise. That passion they abuse can be their undoing. Entire studios going independent is just a roundabout way to fire your boss. When things get rough, these are the kinds of thoughts you find at rock bottom. The low so low there's nowhere to go but up. The industry ain't out for the count. It just needs a second wind. And that's quite the ending for a new beginning. I am going to ruin it though, so I can thank each and every one of you en masse, because there is a lot of you. There's a lot of you. The support since I've started Cold Take has been insane. So thank you all for that. Thank you all who are supporting the Patreon. Thank you who just tune in to watch on a Monday. You've been as much a part of my routine as I've been a part of yours. So let's keep that going, as there are different things I'd like to explore beyond I hope for the best but expect the worst of the industry. And for those of you looking for where to support our independent endeavors, we've got the Patreons, the PayPals, the Coffees, Ko-Fis, whatever those are called. With any and all support, we do intend to try our best to put out our best without any corporate oversight.